Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Jedi Knights, the official Star Wars podcast of JoyClicks. I'm your host, Christian Buckley, joined by my Chewie in the co-pilot seat, as always, Mike Connors.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited for this episode today. It's a little bit of a departure from what we normally do. So, yeah, I'm ready. I'm hyped, full energy.
Yeah, we've been building to this for a while.
We have,
you know?
Yeah, we have.
And it's weird. It feels like we haven't done an episode in a while, even though it's just basically been a week. But
wait, yeah, wasn't it just last week? Yeah.
It just feels like it's been a long time. I don't know why.
I don't know.
As always, I'm happy to be talking about Star Wars with you. One of my favorite things every single week.
Same.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Spending more time outside, I guess. Still trying to social distance, but it's nicer outside, so that's good, right?
Yeah. Honestly, bad weather recently. I love reading outside, so now that it's clearing up a little bit, got a nice hammock set up outside. Gonna dive into our next book. Oof.
Truth, man. Reading outside is one of the great pleasures in life, I think.
Oh, yeah. Summertime, great thing to do. Love it so much.
For sure. How about you? What have you been up to?
Battlefront, some other games, Joy-Click stuff. And, that's pretty much been it, you know? I've been in the Star Wars mood the past week, though. Last week I rewatched Solo. This week, kicking around, maybe watching Empire. I don't know. I'm just feeling it, so we'll see what happens.
I fell asleep watching Rogue One the other night.
Oh, nice.
So,
how far did you get?
I got to the part where they blow up Jeddah City.
Nice. Okay.
That's about as far as I got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no better way to fall asleep than the cries of Forrest Whitaker and millions of others.
Yeah. Obi-Wan never felt that one, I guess.
No, he did not. Well, before we dive into the run of the show, we're going to be kicking off the way we normally do with From the Jedi Archives, a little fun segment that we do to open the show to educate each other and our audiences about some little Star Wars facts. Mike, I went last week, so please kick us off.
All right, sure. So this week, I have to say, it's not so much of a deep cut. Most people know who this character is. Christian, I'm sure you know who this is. It's Wat Tambor. Mm-hmm. You're familiar, correct?
The name I know absolutely, but I think once you say some information, it'll come to me.
All right, he was a male Skakoan. Totally don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who was the foreman of the Techno Union?
Yes.
And an executive of the Bactoid Armor Workshop.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was the Techno Union Army guy, and he had that knob on his whatever. I don't know, breastplate, whatever. But yeah, Wat Tambor. He's from Skako Minor, and he was slaughtered by Anakin on Mustafar.
Mm-hmm. A great moment.
Great moment.
Honestly, for how iconic that line is in Attack of the Clones, I feel like he deserved a better death, or at least more of a focus, you know? Because I feel like in that death scene, it's the Neimoidians, right, that get the big climactic death at the hand of Anakin, you know? He just gets dropped.
He does get dropped, but it's funny because I think he is in Clone Wars Season 7.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He's in the Bad Batch episodes.
Yes, that is correct, yeah, because I remember, yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is he has a Clone Wars presence, if that makes it better for you.
That helps, for sure.
But yeah, Wat Tambor, I think he's an underrated character, and yeah, he's my pick for this week.
Excellent. Similar to you, I have one that, I feel like casual Star Wars fans are aware of, you know?
Sure.
And also Unsung Hero. Does not get enough credit.
Okay.
And that is R4P17.
All right.
The astromech unit assigned to Obi-Wan Kenobi during the Clone Wars really was paid dust in the films, but did get some love in Clone Wars, you know?
Yeah, have you ever seen that that video that went around the internet recently, and it was George Lucas talking to some person on the set of Attack the Clones, and he was like, oh, R4, he's just like R2 but painted red, right? And George Lucas is like, hey, don't say that about R4, and then it cuts to like George Lucas like pretending to like punch this guy.
Yeah, that's a great video. I think John Boyega posted that on his Instagram.
So
it's a funny video.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great piece of media.
It is, yeah.
So a little biography. R4P17 was manufactured by Industrial Automaton sometime prior to the Clone Wars.
Cool.
The feminine astromech droid accompanied Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi to Kamino and Geonosis as the Jedi sought to uncover the mysteries behind the assassination attempts of Padme Amidala. R4P17 died in the Battle of Coruscant right before Anakin and Obi-Wan landed on Grievous's ship. The head of R4P17 was chopped off due to buzz droids, and Obi-Wan did not show 1 second of remorse.
You know, as he should have, right? Like from his Jedi learning, not supposed to get connected to these inanimate objects.
Yeah, and I guess it makes sense because like
I mean, they're not. I guess they're not inanimate, right? They can.
Yeah.
They have feelings, but whatever.
In A New Hope, when Obi-Wan is like, I don't remember owning a droid, I guess it makes sense because he doesn't really care that R4 gets blown away after 4 or 5 years fighting in the Clone Wars. Like,
yeah.
So
R4, it's like if you were to, yeah, definitely. It's like if you were to try to imagine Anakin Skywalker, like if R2D2 were to get like destroyed during the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker would be distraught over that. But
yeah.
Mm-hmm. R4 though is an unsung hero.
Absolutely.
She is she's a good pick.
For sure. Worth shouting out, when Obi-Wan went to Utapau later in the film, he was using R4G9. So new droid just slotted right in there.
There you go.
So, but that does it for this week's Jedi Archives. As always, a very fun segment. I love hearing the picks every week.
Yeah, they're good.
Mm-hmm. So we have a little bit of news to talk about. We'll start with the big thing that I've seen pop up a couple times before we get into just like announcements of publishing stuff. But Mike, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a narrative going on right now that Disney is gonna retcon the sequel trilogy.
Oh, I saw this.
You've seen this?
Yeah.
Disney's not gonna retcon the movies, you nerds. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
I saw this and I was like, this is just the most like incredible thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. So, for fun, right? Like, I saw this video pop up on a recommended thing on YouTube. It was like Disney's plan to trash the sequel trilogies, and then like the thumbnail was like a picture of Rey, and it was like bad, like the most clickbaity thing I've seen in my life. And I was like, you know what? I'll give you 5 minutes. Turns out the video was only 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and this guy telling this story, he's like, so trust me, Disney is going to use the mirrors in the Death Star throne room from 9 as a way to explain how, I forget which character, but like some character could access them to enter the world between worlds, go back in time to the end of 6, make sure Palpatine's mega dead, so that way the characters, the destiny of like Ben Solo and Rey Palpatine being born can still happen, but the events of 7, 8, 9 don't happen.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, what's your take on this? Like, do you not want to see this? Do you want to fund this on Kickstarter right now? Like, what?
I don't. I really, honestly, don't want to like do anything with this period of Star Wars like ever again. Like, I think we just need to move on. Like, I know people are upset that like they didn't like the last, the Rise of Skywalker and like the Last Jedi and all that kind of stuff, but like, y'all people just got to move on. Like, yeah. I think we should be encouraging Disney to like create new stories in different times. Like, I think it's kind of like a waste of effort to just like focus on something that already exists. Like, they spent so much money into it. It's ridiculous to think that they're going to do that, and like I wouldn't even want to see that to begin with. Yeah,
and like no matter what you think of it, there's a story that was told, right? There's a story between 7, 8, 9 that is cohesive to an extent, and
no, I wouldn't say it's cohesive.
To an extent. Like, there's an underlying current between...
I don't think so.
Okay, there's Rey becomes a Jedi over the course of that trilogy. That's the thing that happens, right?
Sure.
So there's still that aspect to it where it's like, at the end of the day, if Disney wants to look back, they're like, hey, we told a story. It's a story that has 3 parts to it. Like, there's that still, you know? Like, they're not gonna throw that away and redo it, especially when, 1, you already spent that Harrison Ford ticket. You can't get him back. 2, Carrie Fisher's passed away. And Mark Hamill, maybe he'd do Luke again. Maybe he'd voice Luke in a series, but, like, I'm sure he's in no rush. Like, you had your shot. You can't do it again, right? Like, there's no way you can make a better version of a sequel trilogy the way that people want it to go, because the original cast isn't all together anymore. Like, that's not something that's possible. They took their chance, they took a shot with it, and that's the version we got. So they're not going to backtrack on that when it can't even be anywhere close to what we have right now, you know, in terms of relying on the nostalgia and what people wanted as a follow-up.
Yeah, I also don't think that they would even want to. Like, they already spent all of these resources into doing the sequel trilogy, and it took them like X amount of years, like, I don't even know, probably a long time. And they spent a lot of money on it, and like you said, they've exhausted the Carrie Fisher thing, like they've exhausted the Harrison Ford thing, like they've potentially even exhausted Mark Hamill, and like why they would go back to it is like, it doesn't even register to me like in making sense at all, because like they already cashed out, you know, like why, like whether or not you like those movies or you hate them, like they still turned Disney a profit, each one of them. Like they cashed out hard, and they should just leave it alone, and that's what they're gonna do. That's exactly what they're gonna do.
Yeah, the closest I could see to them finagling their way through this, right, would be if 7, 8, 9 become 10, 11, 12, and then we get like a Bridge of the Gap trilogy with like Alden Ehrenreich and whoever they cast as the other 2. But even at that point, I feel like that's something that works better as this hypothetical TV series that you and I keep talking about and dreaming of, right? Like,
yeah.
There's way more potential there because it's like 20 odd years, right? Between 6 and 7 or 30 maybe. Like, you have a lot of ground to cover that if you make pillar points of like, this is a huge event that happened that was so big we had to make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's too restrictive where you could get like 10 seasons of an animated show to cover all that period of time, right?
I mean, like, in my opinion, I think that they've already had the opportunity to create a story after, Return of the Jedi, and they squandered it. And, like, they don't get to do it over, and nor would they want to do it over. Like, am I saying that, like, they can't, explore the period between episodes 3 and episodes 4 and, like, more content? Like, no. Am I saying that they can't, explore what happens between episode 7 and episode 6 through more content? Like, they are. Like, yeah. I think that's fine. But if they're going to return something to, like, the large screen, the big screen, as they say, they need to come up with something completely different.
Yeah. I especially what we've been talking about with Disney Plus and Clone Wars, like, Star Wars works so well as TV that I do think we will continue to explore the gap of 6 and 7, like you're saying, and I do think Han, Luke, and Leia are not gone. Like,
yeah, sure.
I just makes sense that it's going to be an animated series, right? Like, that's what you do. That's how you fill that gap, and you can have however many crazy stories. Like, you saw what Dave Filoni did with canon in, like, the father and the son and the daughter and all that stuff. Like, they can do whatever they want, to get the feeling of whatever people were expecting 7, 8, and 9 to be. They can do that in an animated show and have, like, no consequences, because look what they did with Clone Wars, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So
and if they want to make like a Han Solo TV show, like a live action Han Solo TV show, there are no consequences to that. Like,
yeah. So these characters, you're still gonna get more of these characters, right? Probably not on the big screen, but they're not gonna retcon the sequels. They might try to bury them like they did with the prequels for a little while, but even at that point, like, I feel like there's gonna be a Rey book. There's gonna be a Finn Jedi training book. Like, this stuff is gonna stick around no matter how much you hate it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's already too much ingrained in, like, the Disney, like, zeitgeist for them to ever be able to fully remove it.
Yeah.
And they've, like I said, they already spent too much money into it. There's no possible way that they're going to back out now.
Yeah, and I honestly, I wouldn't want them to, because that's the things I don't like about 9 was them doing shades of that, right? Like,
yeah.
And give it some space, but I'm fine coming back at some point, like, I want to see Finn train to be a Jedi. I'll read it if I have to, but I feel like that's a cool story to tell. Like,
Agreed.
I'll be there for that. So
agreed. I think that would be a cool TV show, maybe.
Yeah, we just need some time.
John Boyega, I feel like he'd be into that. Maybe give him some time. Give him some time.
Yeah, give him some time. We'll see. But I saw that in so many places, and you know how the algorithms work. The second I finished watching that video, I got like 10 more recommended about the same story.
Honestly, yeah.
So,
but I mean, yeah, it's an interesting take, but I think that it's flawed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not going to happen.
No, yeah, definitely not.
I will eat a hat if that happens.
Yeah, I would do something insane if that happens.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even want it to happen. Anyways.
Yeah. You know what I think some of these people might need?
What?
A Star Wars mindfulness book that was recently announced the other day.
Okay, is this a segue?
It is.
All right.
So, Amy Ratcliffe, who I followed earlier this year on Twitter, she was tweeting out updates about the High Republic stuff during the Del Rey event.
Is she an author?
She is. So she wrote a Star Wars book before. I did not take a note of what she wrote before, but she is writing a new book called The Jedi Mind. And
okay.
If you want, I can read some descriptions about this whole book.
Please do.
The Jedi Mind is all about mindfulness practices inspired by the Star Wars universe with art by Christina Chung. Star Wars The Jedi Mind takes quotations and lessons from Star Wars films and books and pairs them with practices such as a breathing, posture, or meditation. The Jedi Code is focused on peace, knowledge, serenity, and balance, principles that readers can engage in their own lives. The philosophical tenets are applicable not just in the galaxy far, far away, but in our own galaxy here and now. And it's just a $15 book.
Okay, yeah.
Coming out later this year.
That's cool. I mean, I saw that. I just looked her up. She wrote the book Women of the Galaxy.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, yeah. I mean, I've seen that book, like, in stores, so I've taken a peek through it. The Women of the Galaxy book is actually pretty cool. There's a lot of cool art in there.
Yeah.
It looks similar, this Secrets from the Force for Balance and Peace.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. I'm not going to buy it, but, maybe this is definitely for somebody out there.
Honestly, it might be for me, because I've
there you go.
been meaning to try meditating more just because of, like, a million things going on in my head constantly, and I feel like it could just be beneficial, and, like, tricking myself to being cool about it with Star Wars, it could be a fun thing. And it's $15, like, at best, it turns into, like, a coffee table book I have,
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's only $15, like you said. It looks like it's probably like, it's probably nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah.
More power to you. I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's something for me, but.
Yeah, and that is releasing later this year. I saw pre-orders are up. That's how I saw the pricing of it. But it's in a week that's light. It's nice to have like just a calm, relaxing thing. It's like, hey, that's a cool thing. That just makes sense. That's a cool thing. That's practical.
Definitely. I mean, honestly, I think the book that I'm more interested in buying is the the Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view thing.
Right.
That's what I'm interested in, personally.
Yeah. That is later this year, and I wonder. Honestly, I should check out the first from a certain point of view.
It's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
But the other news piece of the week, before we continue on, also has to do with books, and that is a huge publishing effort about The Mandalorian.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw any of this stuff, Mike, but there's
not.
A lot of Mando books coming up.
Let's see it.
All right.
I actually haven't heard about any of this, so.
Okay. So I can run through all of them if you want, and then we can talk about any highlights. I can try to find more info if you want.
Okay.
But Art of the Mandalorian Season 1 by Phil Sostak who also worked on the art books and concept art, I believe, for the live-action Star Wars films of the past 2 years. Like, I think we talked about a quote from Phil Szostak when we were talking about the story of Rey's lightsaber that got cut. Like, it was his perspective and his information in the Art of Nine, I think, that gave us that insight. So Mando could have some cool stuff in there that got cut.
Okay, cool.
A Mandalorian original novel by Adam Christopher, which I don't know if it will be recounting the show. I don't know if it's a novelization. But similar to 9, getting that novelization, the 7 and 8 novelizations, adding more context, adding concepts. So maybe we get more info on Mando or Baby Yoda through there.
That's interesting. I wonder like what this is going to be about.
Yeah, because like I feel like there's a story you can probably flesh out with a little more detail, right, than what's on the show, because a lot on the show is show don't tell, and it's a book's job to tell. So like we'll obviously be getting more information that we did with the lake monster in 9, right? Like fill in the gaps.
The only other thing that the guy who's writing that book, Adam Christopher, that has written that I can tell from a very brief look through is a Stranger Things novel.
Oh, interesting. Wonder how that'll be.
Yeah.
Next up, our boy Pablo Hidalgo is back. The Mandalorian Ultimate Visual Guide.
Oh, the man, the myth, the legend, Pablo.
Yes. Did you ever have any of the like visual guides for any of the older movies too?
Yeah, no, I have like the big like compendium one for 1 through 6.
Ooh, nice.
So it's like the big like thick hardcover one. Yeah, I was all in on those, man.
Yeah, I have I don't know if it's canon anymore, but I have the Phantom Menace one. So that's a cool one. That's on the shelf downstairs.
I don't know if those are canon. I would assume that they aren't, but maybe they are.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'll look into that for next week. I'll go down and fact check, just see like what the credits are, what era of publishing it was.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, next up from Brooke Vitale, we have 2. A Mando, Allies and Enemies, and then a Mando 8x8 storybook, titled Subject to Change. So more kid-focused, you know, like if you're doing a storybook, probably like Calvin and Hobbes style, Baby Yoda and Mando. We've seen a lot of fan art like that.
Gotta love it, man.
Continuing on that line, a Mandalorian Junior novelization by Joe Schreiber. And finally, last but not least, from the Star Wars Newsnet write-up, quote, Mandalorian-inspired comics from Marvel and IDW. So,
that's cool. I mean, I'm really only interested in the original novel and maybe the visual guide, and then definitely the comics. But
yeah, I think there's gonna be interesting stuff to pull from the visual guide and the art book, just because of the descriptions we get and like figuring out what some concepts were. Like maybe we get hints at Moff Gideon or something, right? Maybe like sort of backstory on him, just with the flavor text of his outfits or his ship or something.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, like, do you think there's going to be more exposition on, like, who Mando is as, like, a person? Like, in a way I kind of want that, but in a way I also I would like to see him be more, like, mysterious in his background.
Yeah, I feel like this could be a case where the, like, additional reading is the stuff that gives you the background or fleshing out the gaps, but when time comes for the show, it's a lot more about the here and now. Like, it's not really focused on his backstory. Maybe we get a little more context on how he became a foundling, but I don't think it's going to dive deep into, like, oh, his brother Jonathan, or something like that, that we'd see in a book like this, you know?
Yeah, okay. Well, interesting. Yeah, like I said, I'm interested to read the book. I probably will read the book, maybe, but...
Yeah, I'm curious to see the direction of the book, like if it is just going to be a straight novelization or if it's going to be an additional piece. I really don't know, but I'm curious to hear more about that. Same thing with the comics. Like, Mandalorian inspired is interesting to phrase it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we going to get a Cara Dune comic?
I mean, that's the way that the actual like Star Wars press release is written too. So it's not just Star Wars Newsnet.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I think it just means maybe just things that have to do with Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I would say definitely like spin-off comics about like characters like Cara Dune or something like that, like you said.
Yeah, like I'd love like a 4-issue Cara Dune Arc Trooper thing for the New Republic. That'd be sick.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Like maybe like a one-shot of Grief Karga just giving out bounties for a weekend or something. Like
I like the 4-issue like runs that they do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing Cara Dune as like an ARC trooper would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Because I doubt we'll get that in the show, you know, because it seems like Mando isn't super focused on the history to a certain extent. Like we do get flashbacks, but that's just for Din Djarin. Like I doubt we'll get Baby Yoda flashbacks or Cara Dune in season 2. But yeah.
I don't even know if Baby Yoda's old enough for flashbacks. So
yeah, who knows? 50 years old, you can't do much in that time.
Yeah, seriously.
But that does it for news. Pretty light news week. Publishing heavy. That's what the next couple months are going to be. Not only in the Star Wars sphere, probably, but in our show as well. Because a couple episodes back, we announced we were doing Star Wars Book Club, right?
Yeah, I think it was like right before the beginning of June. I don't know.
Okay. So a few episodes back. And we will get to our review book club discussion of Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice.
Yes.
But I did want to announce our next book.
Please.
I'm holding it in my hands right now.
Awesome. Are you showing it to the camera?
I am. Star Wars Alphabet Squadron. Book 1 of the Alphabet Squadron trilogy by Alexander Freed. I'm very excited to read this one, Mike.
I started reading it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Is it good? You give us a little tease. Is it good? You like it?
I mean, I've only read 25 pages of it. So far, it's pretty good, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, we got Squadrons in the fall. Figured diving into a book about a squad of fighter pilots would get me in the mood even more for Squadrons.
And this has a sequel, too.
Yeah, so, hey, if this is a hit, we got a roadmap, you know?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
I did this for the Master and Apprentice, so I can just read through the back recap text for people who might not be sold yet.
See, I don't have the physical edition like you do. I'm reading it on a Kindle, so.
Ooh, very nice. Okay. So, on the brink of victory in a brutal war, 5 New Republic pilots transform from hunted to hunters in this epic Star Wars adventure. The Emperor is dead. The rebellion is victorious. In the aftermath, Erica Quell is just one of thousands of Imperial defectors living in a deserted shantytown. Uncertain about her place in the Republic she once fought against, she has begun to lose any hope for redemption until she is selected to join Alphabet Squadron. Cobbled together from an eclectic assortment of pilots and starfighters, the 5 members of Alphabet are tasked by New Republic General Hera Syndulla herself.
Ooh.
Their mission, to track down and destroy the mysterious Shadow Wing, a lethal force of TIE fighters exacting bloody, merciless vengeance in the twilight of their reign. But going from underdog rebels to celebrated heroes isn't as easy as it seems. The wayward warriors of Alphabet Squadron will have to learn to fly together to protect the new era of peace they fought so hard to achieve. That sounds awesome.
I've heard good things about the book, man, and so far, like I said, I've only read like 25 pages of it. It's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm excited to read this. The Star Wars books, we'll get into it. Obviously, they're pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
After our first experience with your like second or third Star Wars book, but my first, like, oh man, I'm ready. I'm ready for another one, and I'm ready for a fighter pilot perspective, because that's going to be a completely different vibe that I'm ready to see.
Definitely, man. It's cool. I'm excited to read Alphabet Squadron, especially since there's a sequel, and I'm pretty positive that we're gonna end up liking it. So,
yeah, and I'm pretty sure. I don't know if this is 100% confirmed, but I think it might have some ties to Squadrons.
I have no idea. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I might have read that in a press release for Squadrons. I'm not sure, but if they're answering to Hera, then I would assume that maybe there's a couple things, a few nods, you know.
I have no idea. Yeah, I think it's very possible. I mean, they're still writing these books, so.
Well,
yeah.
That one, because do you want to put a date on that?
I mean, what do you think is realistic here? This is how the sausage is made right here.
Yeah, I think we could probably say either end of July or first week of August.
Let's say first week of August.
Okay, just to be safe, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the first week of August, that episode will be the book club review of Star Wars Alphabet Squadron, and I'm excited.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
So, moving on. Oh, also, we're shouting out, because this is a podcast, people listen to it audibly. You can listen to the audiobook too, if you don't want to read, and you want to
follow along by audiobooks. That's totally legitimate. Totally a good way to read the book.
Mm-hmm. I had a free redemption of something on Audible, I think, whatever they connected to on Amazon, and I used that for a couple chapters of Master and Apprentice when I was cooking and stuff, but good experience.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that brings us to the topic of today.
Master
and Apprentice reviewed.
Do you have your copy?
I do, right here.
Same. Slap it. Right here, baby.
Dude, this book is great.
This book is awesome. Okay, so I don't know even where to begin, you know? Let's just talk about... Yes, say what you're going to say.
I was just going to ask you a very broad strokes question. Did you take notes while you were reading or after the fact or anything?
Not really. No.
Okay. I wrote down a few notes after a day. I finished it 5 days ago, I think. So I did some notes a day or two after I wrapped up just to have some talking points still.
Okay. All right. So I mean, first off, I was pretty excited about the premise of this book because it's about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan before Phantom Menace. It's one of the earliest, it's one of the earliest things that they're in this canon, the new canon of Star Wars. And I have to say, it didn't freaking disappoint.
It did not.
It really didn't. The setting, the time period was such an interesting time period to have this all set in.
Absolutely, because you don't get a ton of lightsabers clashing as you would with well, I mean even Phantom Menace doesn't have a ton of it, because Maul shows up twice, but the absence of a big Sith presence is really interesting because it's still sort of what High Republic's been pitched as, of the Jedi in their prime, which 400 years after what High Republic has been pitched to be, Jedi are cocky, right? They're on their way to Revenge of the Sith, no question. But no clones in this prequel era still, no hint of anything like that.
It does give a very, very hard impression of these Jedi think that they're at their prime, and they are in some way.
It's very interesting, and it was honestly I had trouble putting it down because you said that the math worked out if we did 30 pages a day we'd be done by the end of the month.
Yeah.
There was one day where I read 100 pages just straight up. I was like, this I cannot stop. This is great.
For sure, man. For sure.
Props to Claudia Gray because I feel like she understands Star Wars better than I do.
The feeling was it felt the entire time it felt the first 3 minutes to Phantom Menace but just for an entire book.
Yeah, that's insane. And obviously I know she's a celebrated writer, especially in Star Wars, but God, she does not miss a beat. I'm right there with you. I was constantly thinking of damn, it is so consistent to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace. I'm sure you were too, just especially because their likenesses are on the cover. But I was like playing out all the scenes and like reading it in the voices of Ewan and Liam Neeson. Like it felt like it fit so perfectly that it was like I was watching a Star Wars movie, and I was blown away.
Yeah, she really has a good handle on like who these main characters are, and like she you could tell like she's very good at channeling them and like writing in their own like thoughts. It's very cool.
Yeah. Even the pacing too. Like I know it's weird to talk about pacing of a book to a certain extent because like the pace is kind of on you still. You know, like yeah, it's dependent on how much time we spend on certain things, but like you can read fast, right? Like
yeah.
So there's an element there that's not the same if you're talking about pacing of a film, but it felt paced like a movie to me.
Like I think talking about pace in the context of a book is completely reasonable because like the author can like linger on things, right? Like they can like linger on a certain scene, they can linger on a certain like event in the book, something that happens, and like this book pretty much moves it along. It has a story it wants to tell. It obviously has a very concrete like ending to that story, and it gets there in a very concise but interesting way. That's extremely nuanced. All the politics of it was like very, very complex, and it's interesting.
It's funny you bring that up because I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think like politics in Star Wars just works better in books?
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, because you've had a couple like political Star Wars books. You read the one about Amidala, like
yeah. So I read Queen's Shadow, which is very much like, about the Senate and all that kind of stuff, and that one is like the most politics heavy Star Wars book that I've read probably. Very little like action. Like this one has a lot of like action scenes in it and stuff, and like predicaments that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon get themselves into. But like, I definitely think the politics works better on the page. Especially since I also just finished reading another one of Claudia Gray's books, Bloodline, which is about Leia, nice. And that's about like the New Republic Senate and very much politics. I think it's definitely better than Queen's Shadow. It's much more adult, and it's like look at like how the political system works, and yeah, I think politics is like a huge part of Star Wars, but it definitely doesn't necessarily translate that well onto like film. Because people don't want to listen to that. If you're interested in it, you'll read Master and Apprentice, or like you'll read Bloodline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like especially after we rewatched the prequels, and I was like really enthralled by Palpatine every time he talked, like and like piecing together everything. I honestly, I'm probably gonna read Queen's Shadow eventually because
it's good.
Just like exploring that and like figuring out the intricacies of everything. I'm a fan. It is thrilling.
No, honestly, it's good. So
yeah. So how do you feel about like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan presented in this book? Like we feel like it's natural for where they exist in Phantom Menace, right? But the majority of the book, it's about them kind of trying to see eye to eye and come to terms with the fact that they're together for a reason. Like they shouldn't be running from that, and like they spent a lot of time, and it was kind of sad realizing this, like they spent a lot of time training together, really not comfortable. And like in Phantom Menace, you do sort of get the butting of heads a little bit, but we clearly get to a point where Obi-Wan respects Qui-Gon for his differences, even if he doesn't agree with them fully. That I was kind of surprised to see that even this close to Phantom Menace, they weren't really on that level.
Yeah, I think the book does a really good job just like fleshing out the characters more, making you really understand like bringing you into the minds of like what Qui-Gon is thinking and what Obi-Wan is thinking, and the differences between those are like pretty apparent, like pretty stark and apparent, I'd say. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I was talking with Jack Martin about it, and he was like, I really like how, you're like those like quieter, like more contemplative moments like between characters and stuff like that, and just like characters on their own, like in their own internal monologue, And I think that's really true in this because, you know, you see Qui-Gon on film, and like, yeah, you kind of get the idea that he's like an outsider, like, that he's not quite like, you know, the rest of the Jedi, and you see a little bit of the butting heads, like you said, with between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but the book really fleshes that out and very like emotional and like, I don't know, I felt like connected to it in a different way than the movie does.
Definitely, because sort of what you and Jack are talking about with like sort of self-reflection and really introspective moments and like really going through what these characters are thinking, it's on screen relegated to just the acting of Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson when they just are like looking at something, you know, and it's like they do the beard stroke and like they're just looking off screen, like
Yeah.
Everything you get, like we get like 2 paragraphs of like Obi-Wan thinking through something after Qui-Gon walks out of a room, and that in the film would have been, Qui-Gon walks out of the room, we cut to Ewan, he makes an expression, and then we do the wipe, and that's it, right? Like,
Yeah.
really getting in the weeds with it, I thought was really interesting, and obviously made me appreciate Obi-Wan's like depth way more, but I got a lot, like, I liked Qui-Gon before, but dear God, he's up there now.
I mean, honestly, I really didn't care for Qui-Gon before. I think I've expressed that on this podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, the book totally changed my mind on that. I mean, I think he's one of the most like complex Jedi.
Yeah.
And I think this, like, obviously you can get that from watching the movie, but I think the book makes it much more, in your face, much more prevalent. Yeah, it's interesting. Like the way that the book like is set up. Like, are we talking about spoilers here? Like minor.
Oh yeah.
All right, minor spoilers for the book.
Oh, it's all out. We read the book.
Spoilers for the book. When the Jedi Council offers, Qui-Gon that position, that's like the perfect. That's the perfect like setting for like the rest of the book to happen, like on an emotional plane, like because both like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon have to juggle with like that reality. It's brilliant, man.
Yeah, and moments like that, like when, like seeing Qui-Gon talk to the council later on when like Yoda force times him, or hologram calls him. We don't have force time yet.
Not quite force time, Christian.
He calls him and he's like, "Hey, just so you know, I wasn't with this." You know.
That I find that like so funny though, actually.
Yeah. Because like it's the council, it's a big deal, so they have to be that forward with it, right? But like seeing Yoda almost like not antagonistic, but like he's sort of the main focal point of Qui-Gon's opposition with the council, right? Like in Phantom Menace, that's just a line, right? Like Obi-Wan says something in Phantom Menace to Qui-Gon about like, oh, something about Master Yoda, I know you don't get along, like that kind of thing.
Right.
But I'm sure you were too, but I was thinking a lot about Phantom Menace the whole time. I was thinking a lot about just sort of what we talked about from that director's roundtable a couple weeks ago about how Qui-Gon could have impacted the rest of the prequels. Like, I was just really fascinated learning more about this character who I always liked, but wasn't sure why I liked him. But like now I have a reason to like him. I feel like you said, he's incredibly complex and a very interesting Jedi.
I think what the book did really well that I actually, I enjoy a lot. I think it made Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan both characters at some points that like were like so obviously like you were meant to disagree with them.
Yes.
And I think that that's such a cool way that a lot of authors do that in many books, like to get you to kind of like hate the character in a way. But like, I don't know. I think that just adds so much more nuance to like what they're doing. Like there are a lot of back and forths between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in this book, and it's like it's hard for you as the reader not to be like, I kind of have to agree with Obi-Wan on this one. Like Qui-Gon, you're being a little bit of a jerk. But yeah, it's just that adds so much complexity to the characters, and I think that's an asset the book has.
Definitely, yeah. And like Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars character, right? Like, seeing him at 17 years old in this book and hearing about what his training was like and seeing the conflict that Qui-Gon has and like all of his internal monologues about like how Obi-Wan deserves better, like he has so much potential but like he's not servicing him well, and just how tumultuous Obi-Wan's like Padawanship was, really sort of recontextualizes the prequel version of him for me a little bit, because like yeah, I always loved Obi-Wan and I thought it was like, oh, he's the dad to Anakin, like he's like, oh, you crazy kid, like, oh man. But it like seeing how underappreciated he felt, right? Maybe that's not the right word, but like he felt like he was lacking a lot in his time as a Padawan. So maybe that pushes him to be more by the book in the prequels, you know? Like that's the vibe I was getting when I was reading through.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just think that maybe it's just the way that I read it was just, you know, it's, you know, I don't know, just like a character difference fundamentally between the two of them. Like, like, you know, I don't know, Obi-Wan's right-brained about something, but Qui-Gon's left-brained. You know, I don't know, like that it's just the way, like I wasn't seeing him become like more one way or the other, like maybe just more set in his like already pre-existing beliefs, because I feel like from the beginning of this book, that's something that Qui-Gon and his like internal monologue deals with a lot. Is like, you know, my apprentice, like, you know, Obi-Wan, like he's very much like, you know, into like the black and white of like, you know, the law and like the books, and like, you know, Obi-Wan's more interested in the letter of the law, and like Qui-Gon's more interested in the spirit, and, like.
Yes, I think I meant more along the lines of like seeing the Jedi Knight he is in the prequels and Clone Wars, like seeing the way he interacts with Qui-Gon in this book more than in Phantom Menace makes that make a lot more sense.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Maybe I misunderstood your point, but
yeah, like I feel like there's a lot of seeds that were planted here for like where we eventually go with him. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see why he'd really be on Anakin about like, hey, there's a way to do things.
For sure.
And one of the moments I really liked was Obi-Wan learning from Kaj, the Chancellor.
Yeah.
About Qui-Gon's invitation to the council, and then a couple chapters after, like when Qui-Gon went to talk to him about the incident with Avaros, like, and Obi-Wan is sort of like hostile a little bit. He's like, hey, I did my own research. Like, I know. What do you want to talk to me about it?
Yeah, no, the book has a lot of cool, like, it's very interweaving, and it calls back to a lot of like former stuff too. Do you want to talk a little bit about like the main plot of this book?
Sure. We deal with trade routes once again.
We do.
Hyperspace lanes. So, big general synopsis. There is for the inciting stuff of the story, there's a corporation that is working heavily with another young queen, 14 years old.
Yep.
On this planet, Famry, that's been sort of like distant from the rest of civilization for a long time, and they want to assimilate. They found a hyperspace lane that works. It charts through their location of the galaxy, which has not really been possible. It was very difficult to achieve, and there's some terrorism going on. There's a big treaty, again very political, and an old friend of Qui-Gon who is working for the royal family basically calls Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to come in to sort of sniff out all the disaster that's awaiting while this treaty gets to be signed. So again, very political setup, but it still feels fully like a Star Wars adventure still. It might just be because we know the characters at the start, and like it is kind of, I didn't think it was slow building up, but it is a lot of political talk to set up the story.
I thought it was a little slow building up because of all the political talk. I think it was hard to get around that, and it didn't bother me. Like, it was fine, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like I was really, I think kind of what I was saying about really being fascinated by like how Qui-Gon's mind worked. That might have been what was really carrying me through the early chapters, but I eventually came around, but like popping back, like ripping me away from Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan character growth for like the Pax and Rahara stuff towards the like early middle.
Yeah.
Was a little slow for me. It was a little dry.
I like Pax and Rahara.
No, I do too. I for sure like them. And I like eventually where the entire story goes with them. I just meant more so like at first it was cool, and then a little bit further past the middle, like maybe around like 200 pages or something, like when we kept bouncing back to them, it dipped for me a little bit. But then when we saw the reverse sort of moment of the orb that had like the religious pilgrimage on it, and
right.
then it was like, oh, they're actually the ones that saved them. Then I was back in.
Right.
So,
but yeah,
we do deal. Oh, God.
Oh, I was gonna say, just I think that the setup was a little maybe a little slow, but I think it was worth it. But continue what you were going to say. Sorry.
I was gonna say we deal with a lot of new characters that we haven't heard of before. So I guess for you, did you find yourself caring about most of the new cast, like as you should have? Because I think specifically with Averos, like the slow setup I feel like was needed, because you're bringing up this history Jedi who has a name, it's a big deal in the council, and like just jumping right in, like skipping over the maybe pace-breaking flashbacks, some could say, to flesh out his relationship with Qui-Gon. Those felt very necessary to me, and I just happened to have been entertained by them also.
You're talking about the you're talking about the flashbacks that they'd have with like Dooku and stuff.
Yes, because
those are awesome.
Yeah, dude, I loved those, and I know we have our next book lined up, but I might independently look into Dooku Jedi Lost, because if there's any shades of that in there,
yeah, for real. But I mean, yeah, man, I really liked Rail Averos. The thing is though, the thing that bothered me, I think he's a really cool character, and he's kind of tragic, for sure. But I imagined him in the book because there's a fighting scene. I imagined him with a yellow lightsaber, but like later on in the book, they clarify that it's a blue lightsaber, and I was really pissed. For some reason, I thought he was like a yellow lightsaber guy. But
I could feel that, like there were a couple times. I think when it was the flashback about him and his Padawan, and I was like, hey, maybe one of them is a yellow one, and then it was like, oh no, it's green and blue. This is like super literature teacher for a second, but I thought it was interesting that if we're doing parallels, right, the whole like concept of him and his Padawan is meant to sort of be like a what if for Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to have some sort of dialogue there.
Yeah.
Interesting that the Padawan had the green lightsaber and she died, and out of these two, who has the green lightsaber and who dies?
Seriously, maybe just green lightsabers aren't a good omen. But it worked out for Yoda for a while.
Yeah, it did. But yeah, I did, even with Pax and Rahara too, of like sort of having the mentor apprentice role in like multiple different avenues in the book, kind of caught me off guard, because even with the Dooku and Qui-Gon stuff, there's a lot of parallel stories about a master and an apprentice that went beyond just who's plastered on the front of the book, and made me appreciate their moments together a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. There was just a lot of cool like Star Wars world building in this book too. That I just really enjoyed. I like how the Zerka Corporation came back. That's a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic thing, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Oh, well, that's pretty cool, because I remember in the early pages they were saying something about like, oh, it's existed longer than the Republic, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
So like Zerka Corporation existed in the old canon, and like I knew that it was in this new canon. I just didn't know exactly when it popped up and like what capacity it takes. So it was cool to see that in this book. They have a pretty big presence, Zerka.
Yeah. I wonder if we dip into anything else with them in other novels, because there's a pretty big jump in the timeline for Del Rey publishing, right? Like, it goes from prequel era to well, we get a couple prequel stuff, so we get like Dark Disciple and Catalyst, the Rogue One book, but like there's not a ton to flesh out like 1 to 2 to 3, you know, like, so I wonder if we get more anytime, anywhere.
I mean, I don't know. I would hope so. I want to see more of this like period of time.
Yeah, it's rough because I was trying to think about this, right? Like, obviously Star Wars was a movie first, and maybe it's unfair to think of wants or like dreams based on what we're reading, because the book is great. But when I was reading it, I was like, damn, I really wish we got to see more Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor together.
Yeah, seriously. Could still be done, man.
I guess, yeah, but like, would you want to see an adventure between them that takes place before this, when they kind of don't like talking to each other? Like, I don't know. Where would it take place, do you think?
I wouldn't. The thing is I wouldn't want to see that. I think it exists fine in the book. Like, that's how I want that. This, and I'm holding it up to the screen right now. This is how I'd want to experience it.
Yeah. So like,
I don't think it needs to be done anyway else.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think it was more of just like a, damn, I really love Obi-Wan, and it's real cool getting a greater appreciation for Qui-Gon. I just wish it could be in more places. And specifically with this relationship, like, I don't know how much more you can mine between this and Phantom Menace, you know?
Yeah.
It's possible, but I feel like it'd be very restrictive with, like, timeline stuff. And so at that point, it's like, okay, so would I want to just explore more of Qui-Gon before he got Obi-Wan? Like, I don't, like, where are you with that? Like, do you think you want to see more Qui-Gon ever?
I would want to see more Qui-Gon, but like in stuff like this, like I said, I don't want to. I am not like a huge Qui-Gon fan. Obviously, this book did a little bit more to that fact for me. But yeah, I think that, you know, just watching it, you know, I don't know, watching or just reading about it's better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that is why I do want to look to Dooku, because if it's sort of fleshing out even more of a younger Qui-Gon, that'd be great. I don't know if the Dooku book is more along the lines, timeline-wise, when this takes place, you know, because we do reference Dooku a fair amount, because Rael and Qui-Gon have the mutual mastership with Dooku.
True.
Do you have like a favorite one of the flashbacks? Because I loved those.
I don't know if I do, actually. I can't answer that question. I not off the top of my head like that.
I really loved the early ones, like, sort of when Qui-Gon was nervous and like talking to him, and I was imagining just like a younger Christopher Lee, like, grilling like a child Liam Neeson.
Yeah, no, like the older ones are cool. Like the first, like one of the first ones, like, because I didn't even know, like, obviously you don't really understand what you're reading until you read into it a little bit more. And I was like, oh, cool, it's a flashback with Qui-Gon and Dooku.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's anyone that's memorable, it'd probably be the first one.
Yeah, I also did like the one where he met Aberos of like.
At the battle and stuff.
Yeah, on the beach.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you fall in the ocean, I'll levitate you out. I was like, all right, this guy's cool.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, like, it made me just want to watch Phantom Menace again.
It definitely made me want to watch Phantom Menace again. I mean, overall, like, what do you think about, you know, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan? They ended up teaming up with Rahara and Pax, so that was a cool, like, the timelines converged. And they tried to, like, unravel this mystery about, like, who was creating all of this civil unrest on Pijal. And they go to the moon. And they fight some bad guys.
Yeah, it's a really good adventure. It does take time to build up for sure, but like, definitely. I saw shades of Obi-Wan snooping through the archives in Attack of the Clones. You know, like with all the detective work they were doing.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
like there should be a planet here. like
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that's where you got it from. All right.
that's how we learned all those skills.
Oh yeah, and like, yeah, really just seeing all the connections, especially getting really deep in the prequel era with Clone Wars, and like seeing some of that stuff referenced here, and on a surface level, just the adventure they go on, the mystery of it all. I thought it was like written incredibly well, revealed very efficiently, and I was having a hard time putting it down a lot because it was just very, very entertaining.
What do you think about like the way it ends? If we're talking about spoilers, we might as well talk about the way it ends.
Like the very, very final thing, like the flash forward to like sort of doing the funeral stuff.
Oh no, I'm talking about like the main storyline, the main plot of the book, like on Pajal.
Yeah, I thought it was like fitting, you know. It didn't blow me away or anything, but I feel like I'm never really blown away by endings, you know.
No, me either.
Like, I don't know if I saw a lot of it coming or if it was just like
I saw none of it coming, but I thought it was cheap.
Okay.
Like,
why do you think it was cheap?
Because I was like, what? So like this princess was behind it the entire time. I was like, that seems like that came out of nowhere. Like, there was no, there were no like seeds planted whatsoever for that. Like,
because like early on, like I don't know if it was a red herring or what, but like early on, I was definitely suspicious of Averos, just because like they wanted me to be, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, he doesn't go by the book. He's been out of it for like 8 years. He killed his Padawan. Aren't you suspicious? And I was like, you know what, I kind of am. But yeah, I'm with you there. It's like, it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah, it just seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest with you. Like it seemed like Claudia Gray was like, I need to wrap this up. I don't know who these guys are on the moon. Let's just make it the guys they were with the whole time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But like, it was kind of like, I feel like prequels are kind of pigeonholed to not have great endings to begin with. Like there was only a certain number of ways we could like leave off to make everything make sense continuing, you know. But like, yeah, it was fine.
Yeah, was fine. It's hard because like really in the grand scheme of things, this story does not matter.
Yeah, like if anything, it just bolsters how we look at these two in Phantom Menace.
Exactly.
And that's what I wanted to get out of it, and
that's what I got out of it.
That's what I took away from it, yeah. And like, Averos is cool. Like that was the addition I got.
Exactly. Yeah, he's definitely top there. He's up there amongst the Jedi.
I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but the whole time I was picturing this dude as just like a bearded Jaime Lannister.
Same dude, literally same. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, like something similar to that, like a shaggy looking guy like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's for sure what I was getting. But yeah, do you want to like give it a score? We aren't ranking these, I don't think, but we can review it.
Oh, one thing I did want to bring up.
Sure.
During that race that they have, like the hunt, the animals that they ride are the same animal that Obi-Wan rides in Episode 3 on Utapau, which I thought was a cool little thing.
That was very cool because early on, when like we get our beginning scene of like them storming the hut place, and then a little bit after that, it might be like immediately after when we cut to seeing about Averos on Pajal, like they go into talking. Well, the reason I bring up the hut thing is because out the gate they're name dropping like species and things. It's like, I think I know what that is.
Yeah,
when they specifically brought up, I'm blanking on the name of the creature, but when they brought it up and they were talking about how they were like imported from Utapau, and then on Pajal they got their own like crimson feathers and stuff like that, so they're their own species or like version of the species. I thought that was a cool connection for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was cool. I had to look it up, but whatever.
That was the only thing I was like, oh, I know. Well, and they also like said it was from Utapau, and I was like, yes, that thing. Did you struggle with that at all? Like when they were just name dropping stuff left and right? Did you find yourself having to look things up a lot, or did you just roll with it?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's just something that I've kind of found with like Star Wars books is that I've just come to accept that like there will be some Googling of things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because I think it comes with the territory.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I definitely looked up the Chancellor. I was like, okay, I think it's Ahsoka's race, but it might not be.
It is.
Yeah, it is. So like because I was uncertain and I was like picturing, I was like, should I picture it as like Ahsoka or the guy that helped Palpatine with the horns? Like which one? So yeah, Google helped for sure.
Yeah, for sure. How did you like the ending? I thought it was really cool.
Like, are we talking about the funeral thing again?
Yes, the funeral thing.
That was very cool because it sort of gave me what I think I wanted to take away from Phantom Menace. You know, how I was like, the whole time I was thinking about, damn, I want to rewatch it.
True.
And then, like, outside of him actually dying, right, we get, like, the key moment of their relationship in that film recontextualized with the entire book we just read. And I thought it was really effective. And I really liked them doing that. How do you feel?
I thought it was super effective. I thought it was a really good bookend. Yeah, overall, I would have to give this book out of. Do
you want to do letter grades or we want to do numbers?
Letter grades actually.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like letter grades works better for literature.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know if you have a Goodreads, but like on Goodreads, it makes you review books out of 5 stars, and I think that's the worst. That's the worst way to review a book.
Stars, not great for anything. Hot take maybe, I hate it.
It doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, because 3 stars is like a 60% if you equate the math. I hate it so much. It's bad.
Well, the thing is, it's like sometimes it's like I don't know, like it's hard to tell exactly what 4 stars is, and like it holds such a range, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd have to say Master and Apprentice on a letter grade scale. I'd have to give it a B+.
You have more context because you've read more Star Wars books, but I was thinking about slapping an A on this thing. I really liked it a lot.
I'd say I'm like B+, A-, but probably
okay.
Probably gut saying B+.
All right. If we want to do we want to do a collective thing? Because if you want, we can meet in the middle and say A-. If you're cool with that.
Honestly, yeah, I would say A-.
Okay, so the official Jedi Knights for Master and Apprentice, A-.
It's a great book.
Congratulations.
I like this this new segment we have going on.
Oh, me too. It feels good. Like I'm working my mind again. You know.
For sure.
It's great. Worth shouting out because I think I mentioned this when we said we were reading Master and Apprentice. Claudia Gray. Her High Republic book is about a master and apprentice in the unknown regions. Awesome. It is called Into the Dark, and it is about a Padawan and his master going into the unknown regions and dealing with more mystery in the unexplored regions of Star Wars. So
she's a great writer, man.
Yeah, I will absolutely be reading that. Maybe it's like a spiritual successor to Master and Apprentice, but like, hey, I'll take it because just the dynamic between those two roles was just chef kiss.
Definitely. I actually just finished Bloodline, and she wrote that too. Mm-hmm. She's a great writer, man.
That's excellent. Very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. Listeners, if you're following along, if you want to give like tweet-sized book reviews or whatever, Twitter or comments on the YouTube video, we'll shout them out eventually. I know Jack was reading through it. I know my friend Zach was reading through it, and he texted me this because he just finished Clone Wars too. He was like, "Is Obi-Wan the best Jedi?" Like entire thing considered, classical meaning of a Jedi, is Obi-Wan the best?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. He did love Satine or Satine.
Satine.
Her last name's Kryze, right?
Satine Kryze, sure.
Right, something like that.
I think. But yeah, like I do appreciate that of like Obi-Wan seeing how like strict he was to the core of following that code, and then eventually he realizes he was wrong, and even like he backpedals a bit in the original trilogy of like, oh no, you can't do that. But I do think Obi-Wan, in terms of the classical thing, is like the mold. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
He's great. So, that wraps up the first book review. It was a good one.
It was a great one. I love this segment, like I said.
Yeah, I'm glad we started with that.
Me too. It was a good jumping off point. I'm excited to read Alphabet Squadron.
Me too. And honestly, especially now that I have context and like experience, anytime I'm gonna be spreading the word. Like all my friends that like Star Wars that are missing it, I'm gonna be like, hey, this Master and Apprentice book, it's good.
You just need to read the books, period.
Yeah.
That's what I gotta say.
Yeah. We took our time getting to the TV shows. Now we're just diving in on books, and I can't wait for the rest of them.
Oh, what's the deal with the TV shows?
So I think we established it last week. Worth reiterating.
Because I think I may have forgotten.
Okay, so I believe the recording we're doing. Okay, so the episode that comes out on the 15th, Mike and I will be reviewing season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. It's only 15 episodes. Just general impressions, probably not as super in depth because it's not arc based. Maybe just like highlights, overall thoughts. So yeah, that will be next week's episode. So look forward to that. And if you want to follow along, Rebels is on Disney Plus.
For sure.
Cool. And Mike, if you need more time, we can bump it up another week. Just let me know off air.
All right, I will.
Okay. But that is going to do it. Is there anything you want to shout out before we wrap this thing up?
I always shout out my Twitter, but I never use it. Almost barely. Maybe sometimes. At Mike P. Connors. Very
nice. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Chris N. Buckley. The show, at Jedi Knights JC on Twitter. If you're watching this on YouTube, like I said, and you want to leave comments about the book below, feel free. I don't know how many people will read the books because reading. But hey, incentive, you can get right on the show.
For sure. I would recommend it.
Absolutely. The show's also available, like books, in audio format on podcast services like Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
But it's free though, so.
Yeah, this is free.
Books aren't sometimes not free.
Yeah, that's worth mentioning. I wonder how many episodes we have to do, how many books we have to read to get an Audible subscription or Audible sponsorship.
I don't know. I feel like they give those out to really everybody.
I'll do some digging.
Honestly, we should reach out to Audible.
We should. But if you want to continue listening to the show on audio format, it's available pretty much anywhere. And if you can rate or review on your service of choice, it would be greatly appreciated, so we can keep the train chugging. But
chugging along.
That's gonna do it. Chugging along. I'm very excited for Alphabet Squadron. I'm gonna start that tonight.
Nice.
And until next time, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
May the Force be with you.
General Kenobi.